today what I'm going to talk about is 5 business trends that we're seeing as we go in as the agency, and then how you might leverage what's going on there and new tools to get a competitive edge for 2012. So as you're planning in-house or working with an agency, how do you look at those different trends that are happening and what can you do about it so that you can better your marketing dollar spend and efforts, essentially. So a little bit, Joe pretty much said what we are all about, but I just wanted to say we are a digital marketing strategies agency. So we go in, start with the strategy, make sure we're aligning with your business goals, and then we move down into prescribing marketing campaigns, search, social, website development, redesign, lead gen campaigns, that kind of thing. Really important is that we hit a lot of different types of companies, and that's important because then we can come back out of a company and then apply what we've learned to another company. So we have large B2B enterprise software solutions like Sage, and then we have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So obviously, this is where we rob Peter to pay Paul. So we learn from our large paying B2B people, and then we take that back to nonprofits because all of these things that we're working on can be applied to different venues. And so that's why I'm going to look at 5 business trends, and then we'll apply it to, as you're sitting here listening, hopefully, applying those trends and kind of what I'm recommending to your own business and see where you can go with that. Okay, so top 5 trends. Now, these are not necessarily something I found on Mashable or Fortune magazine. These are things that we're seeing out there. So some of them are going to totally resonate with you, and others may not, but work with me here. So the first one is doing more with less. How many of you are having to do more with less? Yes, okay. So I'm going to say pretty confidently that that's a business trend going on. And it's a bummer. It's not one that we like, but I think what's important is that it's not going away. So even though your budgets may get bigger, and even though your business may get better, and that could be your recession-proof or anything like that, we are used to having higher productivity with less. So we're doing more with less. And that's, no corporation is going to say, you know what, I want you to do less with more now. That's not going to change. So what does that mean, doing more with less? Well, one of the kind of, I would say, riding factors that are happening right now is that we have technology, and that's sometimes replacing what we're doing in the human resources side. So you may have software solution that actually now replaces people or parts of your job that you might have had to do before, and now software does it. So that's okay, but what happens is it kind of rearranges how we are set up. So how many of you saw Tom Bennett's presentation last night? And what he was talking about was the org chart and how very linear and siloed it is. And so that's a problem now because that's not how we work. We don't want to work linear and siloed. We need to really kind of break through that. We need to smash the org chart, and we need to reassess who we have and what we're asking them to do. So when you're doing more with less, do you have the right people in the right place? Are you really leveraging what you have inside, internally, before you have to go out and pay for it? And so I say get all Moneyball about this. So how many of you have seen Moneyball with Brad Pitt? Okay, you thought I'd put Brad Pitt up here, didn't you? Well, I didn't because I want you to think about this. I want you to focus on this. So the, Moneyball is based on a psychological thesis by 2 really smart Israeli psychologists in the 70s. And it essentially, and I'll give you the analogy that Moneyball was. So this statistician came into Billy Beane at the Oakland A's, and Oakland A's were being outspent 10-1 by New York Yankees. And so they're like, we're never going to get ahead. And so the statistician said, you know what? The only way that you can score runs is if your players get on base. And so we really should be looking at this by who gets on base. So we shouldn't really go after the Barry Bondses of the world and pay them millions of dollars. We should go after the really dependable base players. And so they essentially fired all the scouts who thought that they knew how to scout and replaced the entire roster on guys who could get on base. And sure enough, they won the pennant that year. And so statistically, that rode out. Now I bring up Brad Pitt. Can't resist. So what does that mean? That means that your gut, your intuition, those scouts used to say, I just feel it in my bones, he's going to be a great player. Well, that's not always right. In fact, statistically, if you don't leverage all that data that you have and really study that data, you're doing a disservice to your company. So think of all the amount of data that you have. Are you really using it? Or, and this happens to us a lot, I have an executive who says, you know, I think being in the yellow pages is what really does it for us. And you're like, for real? Does it? And so, of course, I can't say that to him, like, for real? Are you kidding? So instead, what I want to do is I want to go back and look at the data that's available. Now, that's very easy these days. I mean, we have overloads of data. We have reams of data. So the fact that I can go back and say, you know what? Yellow Pages makes up 2% of your leads. But search or social or all these other things, they make up the majority. So wouldn't you think that we want to move those dollars over to the ones that are getting us the leads? Now, that's a good argument. That's an argument that an executive will look at and say, you're right. And as long as you don't make him look silly or make her look like a fool, then you're getting what you want. So make sure that you're using data and make executive reports that actually show what is going on in your marketing department. And this sounds so simplistic, but at the same time, so many people go by gut. And as you can see right here, this is the guy who wrote Moneyball. Reliable statistical evidence will outperform availability heuristics every time. So how many times did an executive say, I think we should do it this way? And you're like, oh my gosh, no, we can't do it that way. Well, show them why you can't do it that way. Back it up. So don't just use your own gut and say, no, I don't think that's the right idea. Back it up. And this is where executive reports are really important. Roll it up so that they can see it in very digestible ways. Don't make 50 slides on this. Make 2 slides. Maybe a before and after, but do a data assessment of this. Okay, so first takeaways from trend number 1. Ditch availability heuristics. Don't use your gut and leverage the amazing amounts of data you have. And then in subtext, challenge your executive team. We can't do business the same way we used to. You need to challenge them. But again, challenge them gently, challenge them with data, don't challenge them with attitude. That never goes very far. Second, determine real KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. If anybody's been on Google Analytics lately, you get so much data, your eyes start spinning in the back of your head, okay? So we want to make sure that it's the right data at the right time that we're looking at. So develop your own set of KPIs. And that may be site visits versus site conversions versus how much we paid for pay-per-click and land, all of those different things. But make sure that you, and really this should be less than 50 metrics. And those metrics should inform you, and you would make decisions and change things based on those metrics. So only collect and really track those. As technology replaces some tasks, there's a need to reevaluate where your people go. So make sure you're reevaluating. And it doesn't mean, I know it's hard to get rid of people, but maybe you can shuffle them around. But you can't break the org chart by virtue of introducing new technology and social and all the different things that are environmental factors and not actually change the way we do business internally. And then last but not least, think differently. So look at, are you doing business the same way? Is your marketing department pretty much the same as it was 10 years ago? Because 10 years ago, we were doing things completely different. We were just experimenting with search. There was no social. So you can't do it the same way. So make sure you're reevaluating that. Okay, trend number 2, collaborative team approach. You may say, we're one big happy family. We're always a team. We always collaborate. Okay, do you really? Because you know what? You need to collaborate. Because now we are relying, and social really pushed the envelope here. Social made us say, well, gosh, I don't have that deep level experience, so I'm going to have to go to my product developer and find out the answer to that because somebody's tweeting me questions about the product that I don't have as a marketer. So now I have to leverage my subject matter experts. So all hands on deck. This is the new way of marketing. So your role as a marketer is much more strategic. It's strategy, it's planning, and then it's implementing. But it's not necessarily content development. You may have a content framework that you work on, but hopefully your subject matter experts are who you're leveraging for content development. And when I say that, content development is so important think it's the next slide. Okay. So this is a software bioinformatics firm that we work with down in California. And so what we did with these guys, these are all PhDs in chemistry and biology. So, and they're not natural marketers, if anybody knows a PhD in chemistry or biology. In fact, they have great disdain for marketers. And so what we tried to do is we wanted to kind of switch the paradigm on them. We wanted to say, but don't you want to get your great work out there and get people to better understand what you're doing? And they were like, of course, I developed this product because I believe in it, And so, okay, then in order to do that, we want to get higher in organic search. So Dana, we're going to have you own these phenomenally multi-syllabic words up there, like translational research. We're going to have you own those. This is your group of keywords that you're going to own. And every time you do any tweeting or blogging or Facebook posting or anything on the web on our behalf, we'd like you to use these keywords. Because we've done a lot of research, and this is what people typically search for when they want content for you. And then we'd like you to follow these thought leaders, these certain thought leaders. And I want you to comment on them. I want you to follow them, retweet them, ingratiate yourselves, but get to know them for professional development. Okay, and then I want you to, when you are blogging or tweeting, where would you want them to go on the site, or what offers would you offer in order to kind of further engage them? Oh, well, the free demo. Great, okay. So I've converted Dana into a marketer without really him knowing about it, because I went to him, he being my audience, and said, Dana, don't you want better professional development? Don't you want to let people know about your product? Don't you want to get higher in the search so that we get better traffic on the site? So again, back to knowing your audience and making sure that you, just like your executive team, come at them a different way. But this is really important because this is your team now. These product developers that used to be in the back room, writing code and developing products, are now your subject matter experts. And pretty shortly, soon you're going to find I don't have the depth of knowledge there. So I need to make sure that I have a team. And we call this the SWAT team, Social Web Action Team. Really clever. Somebody else came up with it. But this is important because now they feel like they're a part of this. And it really does create a sense of professional development when they start getting comments on their blog, when they start getting retweeted, that kind of thing. So bringing these guys into the new social media is also a real benefit. Okay. What we find is that one of the critical mistakes is that when we go into companies, the executive team thinks on-the-job training, no problem. So yeah, I know she used to be in Marcom, and now we've got her in social media. No problem. Or this guy used to be a mechanical engineer, and now we have him managing people. That's a problem. So you need to make sure that you're really investing. You wouldn't ask a woman in heels to walk a tightrope if she's never taken tightrope lessons before, okay? So we need to make sure that people are trained. So I'm going to give you 2 things that we absolutely need to train our people on. One is project management. Now, a lot of you might have gone through the PSU. I'm sitting here at a great school that offers project management skills. So many times we come in and there's just a lack of organization. There's a lack of PM skills. And I mean timelines, I mean project tracking, I mean knowing who's on your team and what they're doing, delegation. And these seem pretty basic, but at the same time, I think when you're given a course and coursework where you're really learning true project management skills, you just become better and better. And again, you're probably responsible for finances and budgets and things like that. Make sure that your team has that development and develops that skill. This is really, really important because when we come in, it's the difference between a really well-orchestrated campaign and a total waste of money because it wasn't orchestrated well. It wasn't designed, it wasn't planned, and then it wasn't executed well. So if you can, either if you have that decision-making capability or if you have the ability to talk to executives in your company, make sure, see if you can even just have somebody come in and do the basics of project management. It will go a long way. It will absolutely go a long way. The second thing is people management. My husband is a mechanical engineer, really great mechanical engineer. Got promoted, during the course of his career until he started managing and did no mechanical engineering anymore. He was just managing. Well, what a bummer, because he's a terrible manager. I mean, he's awful. You know, he says whatever's on his mind. First thing that comes to his head, and I'm like, oh my God, you said that? You know, so that's not great, okay? So if somebody has a different skill set and then they're put into a management role, how many of you have had that boss? Yeah, almost everybody raises their hands. What a bummer, right? I mean, so again, now this might be a little sensitive if you go to your boss and say that maybe you need some management skills training. But something to think about. So of course, hopefully there's some executives out here that are like, oh, management skills, okay. But these are really important, and this is the humanistic side, right? I mean, this is tough. PM skills are typically, hey, this is how you project manage, these are the kind of software programs you use. But management's really important, and of course there's morale, and there's motivation, and all the different things to get people to work for you and do more with less. So you need to be able to develop those management skills, and it's really important. So these are the two things I would invest in based on the business trends we're seeing. Okay, so effective modern marketing requires all hands on deck. So make sure you have your SWAT team. Make sure you're leveraging all the different disciplines, and make sure that everybody's contributing where they should be contributing. If there's a reorg, invest in that reorg. Invest in the people that you're leaving behind that have to now be managers who never were before. And then last but not least, communication. There are so many organizations we go in, and we know more than the guy sitting next to the marketing manager. And it's not because we get more emails, they're just communicating with us. And so we want to make sure that everybody's getting communicated to. And this is really important because what you don't want is a new campaign to go out, and somebody comes up to you and says, oh, that campaign's awesome. You're like, what campaign? You know, so not only do you not want to be in the dark, but you could have helped promote the campaign. And in social media, in the world of social media, again, all hands on deck. We want you to promote the campaign. So make sure you're communicating to everybody the strategy and plan. Okay, trend number 3, know thy audience better. So yes, we know our audience. I'm sure each of you can rattle off and say our primary target audience is this, and our secondary target audience is this. But now we can get down to our primary target audience is Casey Boggs. Is Casey here? Okay, good. Casey's a good buddy of ours. But Casey's now our primary, audience, and we're going right after him. So it used to be we had to kind of make this up demographically and psychographically. We think he's this and we think he's that. Well, now I know exactly what Casey is. He's a dad, he owns a PR firm, and he lives on Twitter, Facebook, he blogs. I can tell you everything about Casey even if I didn't know him. Look at the wealth of information we have about our audiences. So this is a very important aspect of what we need to do. We need to find our people, our audiences, and then we circle the wagons. We circle the wagons. So now I can circle myself around, or my brand around Casey. I'm going to circle him with brand positioning, who we are, what we do, thought leadership, we are so smart, and this is why. Happy customers. Casey, somebody like you is using us. You should think about it. And then why us? So our value proposition. What makes us different? So we want to surround him with all those messages. And we want to use the more modern social media tools to do that. So what's fascinating about this, and we work with Sage, which is an ERP solutions globally. And so in the UK, they wanted to partner with a certain software implementer. And so we said, okay. So there were about 5 executives they wanted to get their attention, and there were about 10 probably middle management that they were having the actual discussions with and trying to get a contract together. So they wanted this partner program. So we took out LinkedIn ads for those 15 people. And it was how great Sage is, and how many great customers they have, and how their partner program is amazing. And it was highly effective because now we're just going after 15 people. I can be spot on with my messaging, and it costs, I think, Laurel, $3.25 to get like 1 million impressions. It was just unbelievable. That's a cool ring. I like that. So think about really cost-effective ways to surround and circle the wagons around your target audience. And it's not always about the click-throughs. But you can do the same thing, do a landing page program around the same thing. But it was very easy to target these people, to cater to that message, that we wanted to get across, and then it wasn't expensive at all. And I mean, we got millions of impressions. So again, all we really want is the next time that Sage picks up the phone and says, you know, I really want to get that meeting on the calendar, that they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because they have a very positive brand impression, that they remember hearing from us and they remember reading about us and, oh yeah, that's great. So we're not closing a deal right there. But what we're doing is subliminally moving it a little further forward, getting that positive brand impression, circling the wagons around them so that when they say, oh, I've heard of you guys, yeah, that's right. And it's worked with Mambo too. We do the same thing. So it's a very effective methodology. Okay, so be sure that when you're doing this, research and locate your audience. Be really particular about it. And again, this doesn't work as much with large crowds. This is when you want to get a decision made, when you want to move them over, you can hyper-target. Choose your channels carefully. So LinkedIn, of course, professionally, you know, Twitter with their new branded page, that's going to be very interesting. Facebook, those kind of things. Sometimes there's niche networks that you can go after, but choose the channel and iterate. Hyper-target and spend only on your audience, and then circle the wagons. Okay, trend number 4, smart integration of new tools. So we have a plethora of new tools. It's kind of overwhelming. So what do we do with them? We need to evaluate what tools we're going to use. We need to evaluate how much we invest in each tool. I always say that social media is labor intensive, not necessarily budget intensive, because you don't have to pay necessarily to start a Twitter stream, a blog, any of those things. If you have a little in-house talent, it's very easy to do. But to keep it up and to actually be effective at it, it's very labor intensive. So that means, again, that all hands on deck are, do we have enough people to support this program? So one thing that I want to make sure, and something interesting happens when all these new tools come in. The young folk, the 40 and under, get really excited and they want to implement it immediately. Oh, I started a Twitter channel last night. You're like, what are you saying? I don't know, it looked cool and I put our brand up there, we're good. You know, it's like, okay, slow down. And then 40 and above is like, well, we can't throw away everything we've just been doing for the new tools. And I agree on both sides. I ride the fence as much as possible. I think it's important that you integrate new tools, but that you keep the old world values. So remember your marketing strategies. Remember how you've aligned them. Those don't go out the window just because you started a Twitter channel or a blog channel. Your new channels should be supporting and augmenting all of your goals anyway. So they should not be mutually exclusive. So make sure that whatever you're doing and whatever your goals are per channel, that they really support all the strategic business goals that you have, which I'm sure you have discussions about your strategic business goals. They need to work within that framework. They can't be renegades. It's where we find the most problems is when the old adage, the intern went and started all that, and it's kind of like, well, how does that integrate to all the other things you're doing? Because you want all of the soldiers marching in the same direction. So make sure, don't ditch the old world values. They're very important. Okay, so critically evaluate tools for your company. And I say that, it sounds so simple, but it's important that you don't, for example, start 6 channels tonight. Oh my gosh, I'm coming back from the digital marketing conferences. We need blog, we need Twitter, we need Facebook, and we need Yahoo, and whatever it is. Okay, we need to do all these different things. And it's like, hold on a second. So we want to plan, we want to implement strategy, and do it. I think it was Stephen today who said, use pilots. Make sure you use one program. Don't do it wholesale. I do not recommend starting multiple channels at one time. It's tough. It's very labor intensive. It's very tough. And how do you know you're doing it right if you're having to track 3 or 4 channels at one time? So take a channel, do it well, make a strategy, make a plan, execute, and measure. And then if you feel like you have a lot of time on your hands, go to the next channel. Or if it's highly effective, go to the next channel. But make sure that you're being very stepwise about this. If you do integrate a new tool, one of the big challenges we have is, again, that communication, where people don't all know about what you've just done. And so we actually had a company who said they didn't have a Twitter channel, and so we went to do their audit, and sure enough, we found a Twitter channel for them. And so we came back and we said, well, here's your Twitter channel, and literally the marketing director had no idea that one of the people on her team started a Twitter channel. Well, that's a problem. So I applaud the initiative, right? But certainly that person should have told her manager, and there should have been a real plan behind it. Because I don't know what she was tweeting. I don't know if it's appropriate for the company. So there really needs to be a plan. Just because it's free doesn't mean you need to start it right now. Make a plan. New world tools, old world values, as I mentioned, and then, again, integrate the company's culture. So, and each channel allows you to be more personality, more professional. Every channel has a certain personality, so make sure that you're integrating that appropriately for your company. So when you go into your decisions on what tools to use, and actually let's do a show of hands. So how many companies that you work, where you work, how many of you have a Twitter channel? Okay, and how many of you have a blog? Okay, and Facebook? Okay, good, lots of Facebook. A lot of consumer, B2Cs. Okay, so I think I don't have to tell you about, we're pretty far along in the penetration of social media into the marketing place. So I'm not really concerned about that. It's more of choosing what you're going to do. So as you go through, a lot of times, as you know, a blog is going to get you a really long way into long tail search terms in in SEO. So there's certain fundamental goals that you're going to be doing with each channel. So make sure that you're kind of breaking down how labor intensive these things are and then what goals they're going to achieve. So that you're absolutely sure that this investment makes sense. And you can do this retrospectively. You can look at each of your channels and how many people are required to keep it up and what messages and what type of keyword organic search are we getting out of it. What initiatives can we actually achieve through these channels? And make sure that you're evaluating it that way. Because I think it's really important that that we're being critical about those investments. Okay, so I'm going to skip that slide. Okay, real measurement. So last but not least, so we're finding that we have all this data, and we're not really sure how to make sure that we're tracking it correctly. So I highly recommend that you find your KPIs, key performance indicators, and you write them down. Get them down in an Excel spreadsheet, what have you, and we're going to track them either on a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis, a monthly basis, whatever you guys decide as a marketing team, that's fine. But make sure that you are tracking these accurately. And the reason why we need to do this is because our marketing mixes are drastically changing. And so that guy that I was talking about who said that the yellow pages were highly effective for him, well, we were able to very clearly, through KPIs, demonstrate that they weren't very effective for him. They really weren't. But he had this insecurity of, if I pull out of the yellow pages, nobody will find my business again. And it was a true insecurity for him. He really, really believed that. And again, there's no way that I'm going to be able to talk him out of that if I was just anecdotally talking, but I can talk him out of it if I show him data. So let the data do the talking, but make sure you're measuring all this so that you can reevaluate the marketing mix and put dollars where you're really getting a return on investment. So this just shows you where kind of SEO and pay-per-click and social media are these days in businesses and how they generate leads. So it's very interesting to see how much SEO actually takes a part of this, which is great because social media very much supports SEO. So again, remember that your channels are going to be integrated, and one effort, hopefully, you're leveraging for another effort. You're augmenting. Just had to bring them back again. So again, I don't want to hear, my gut is that this is the way to spend. I'm hopefully hearing from my executive team, well, that last report you showed us really demonstrated that we should be putting our dollars into here, that we should really be cutting our spend this way. And that's hopefully the discussion. And again, it takes any sort of animosity out of it or any sort of judgment out of it. It's just the facts. It's just the data. So go back and look at your data and see what you can pull out. And I always like a good executive report. That always goes a long way. A couple of slides demonstrating where your dollars are going. Okay, so a couple of final things. Don't trust your gut, back it up. Don't measure everything, only metrics that will actually cause change. Make someone accountable for the KPIs and report regularly. We get requests all the time. I have a board meeting tomorrow morning and I have to report on this. You're like, tomorrow morning? So if you are tracking this regularly, then you can say, great, I'll whip up a couple of slides for you. And review and assess your KPIs. Why do we do this? We do this because we need to modernize our marketing. It used to be that we had peaks and valleys in our marketing. And every time we made a spend, we went up, and when we stopped spending, it went down. The new marketing, the new modern marketing is a continuum that goes up and to the right because you've built SEO. You've built goodwill among thought leaders. You've built lead gen campaigns that are not dependent on a pay-per-click budget. You've built all these things organically, and that's what we really want to do. That's what social and the new marketing, modern marketing things allow for. That's what they help you build. And this is a really important aspect of where this is our goal for our clients, this is what we try to do. So that they're not having to depend on spends. They're going to spend, but hopefully those are just a little higher peaks than this, but no valleys. We want to eliminate the valleys. Okay, just to summarize, doing more with less, invest in human resources, know thy audience better, smart integration of new tools, keep the old world values, and real measurement, so you can really analyze that marketing mix. Okay, I think I'm done.
All right, so I've got your first question here, which was, how do you break the org chart at your agency?
How do we, at our agency?
Yes, how do you break the org chart?
Oh, that's a great question, and we actually did. So we now run a hub and spoke model. So we have, my project managers are marketing experts. So they have degrees in marketing. They've been doing marketing for 10 to 15 years, and they own the project. And then they go to the SEO expert or the graphic designer or the PR person, but that hub keeps everything together. And that's a very different model than probably what I know it is, than what we used to have. But they own the entire project, and then they spoke it out as needed. So that completely changed our org chart. If I had to go into a client and do it, I do it very carefully. We recently did it with a large hospital, and as you can imagine with a nonprofit, that's very hard to do. And so it's very important that you, again, demonstrate why it's important. And they were feeling the pain points. They were feeling that they didn't have enough people in the right place. What we do is try to come in and kind of suggest where those people should be restructured and re-put.
How do you advise clients on building a network of relationships within a community to enable better campaigns?
Thought leadership is a big piece of our methodology for sure. So what we do, usually we do a social media audit before we start any sort of marketing, and we identify thought leaders in your category. So the top, say, 50 people that we think really move and shake the category. And then we develop an engagement strategy for you. So here are the ways that we're going to get in front of that person or those people and engage with them and make sure that we're top of mind before a campaign even rolls out. So that's kind of the basis of our campaigns, is that people have already heard us, and we might do a little circle of the wagons as well, so that when we have an important message to roll out in a campaign, they're already very familiar. We might even be able to DM them or pick up the phone and get all analog with them. And they'll actually, talk to us because we've already established that relationship.
And one last one. What are some of the tools you use to listen and measure?
Listening is the bane of our existence. So there's no holy grail. I hate to say it. We've just done about 6 months of listening research on all the different tools that are available. It depends on how much money you want to spend, or any money at all, and the frequency by which you are listening. And then I would say if you want delegation software, so if you want to be able to, within the software tool, say, oh, Johnny, this would be a good one for you to answer, and I'm actually delegating to Johnny without having to leave the tool, which are all great things, but they're going to cost more incrementally. So there are fantastic free tools. I mean, TweetDeck is a great free tool. It picks up quite a bit. Google Alerts is even a great free tool. If you want to cobble together a listening kind of suite, if you will, for free, you can. What the systems out there allow for is that hopefully they're all in one, but I'm here to tell you there's no perfect all in one. But we use Sysomos for medium-sized businesses, and then Radian 6 would be on the upper echelon. And then some of the free tools Laurel, what's a good viral heat? Yeah, and TweetDeck.
All right. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Siouxsie.
Thanks, everybody.